Okay, guys, I'm so excited that you are joining me tonight. This is a little impromptu thing because I do think we all need a little pick-me-up, and seeing how many people have showed up, we're over 36 people now. That proves me right. And of course, I'm not a wizard with emailing and newsletters and platforms and all of this. So you have noticed that that was all of it just, as we say, shot from the hip. But in the beginning of the week, I had an insight. Let's put it an insight while I was meditating, realizing that this time that we're going through, that has been such a challenge and such a struggle for so many of us, might actually have, we always say this might be the biggest blessing in disguise, and what's the silver lining and what's the gift in that. But I think there's actually a practical benefit to this whole time that we're going through. And so ever since that thought dropped into my head, I wanted to share this. And that's when the idea, well, let's do a masterclass came up. And then I thought, well, let's do this in German and in English. And then I thought, well, actually, we need to maybe create a group afterwards. So this is a very casual meeting today, but I want to go deep with you. So my intention for you is that after tonight, you leave with a few ideas and a few tools to know how to shape these times and use these times to create your new reality, to step into the things that you always wanted to create that maybe you haven't been able to realize or create just yet. And maybe even to let go of the things that you've been trying to let go of for a long time. I believe that in these massive currents that we experience these times, lockdowns, light lockdowns, heavy lockdowns, don't leave your house, now you can't leave your house, don't go to work, lose your existence, all of these different things. I mean, this is massive what's going on. I believe, no, I know that there's a massive opportunity. If you have ever done any work with me, you know that my personal mantra is life is happening for me. And even now, I know that life is happening for us. We just need to dig a little deeper and step out of that fear. So I want to help you to trust yourself again, to calm again, to be at peace with yourself again, and maybe even enter a state of joy and love, because that is what we need right now. I'm looking down because I've written these intentions down, and you know me, intentions are important. If you've ever worked with me, you know also that I believe that we need to change the inner game first. And the moment we change our inner reality is when the outside will always follow. I've seen this over and over and over again. It's like, I had this in a session recently. It's like when you change a dial, that suddenly there's a completely different frequency and new things flood into your life. And suddenly you think, well, this is a miracle. Why this has always been there? Why have I never seen this? So we need to change the inside reality and not try to continuously change what's going on the outside. And now we have a massive opportunity to do that. So join me going deep. Join me maybe changing a little bit of your perspective of what's going on. Join me coming closer to yourself again. Hopefully we have a lot of fun tonight. And if we have time, we might do a little meditation in the end. And yes, I will make you an offer in the end to join me in the group after. But this masterclass was not created to make a sales pitch in the end. So this is a completely closed thing. But as my friends always said in the last 2 days, you have to offer people something that they can join later on. But there's not a sales page. I'll just tell you to send me an email if you're interested, and then we take it from there so I can relax a little bit more. So before we dive into this, some of you have probably no idea who I actually am, because I know friends have sent this to friends who sent another link on. And so I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and how this evening unfolds. So I will share a little bit about my journey first. We go into what's the difference between matter and energy, and that we cannot change the matter if we don't change the energy within us. That if we try to change the energy, the matter, it's usually hard work, And then the inside dial is always the step we have to take first. We go into how the subconscious mind works, because I know a lot of people have heard this before from me, but I also know a lot of you might have never heard how we tick, why we tick the way we tick, and how we can change the way we tick in order to get more of what we want. And then we take it deeper from there. So in the beginning, it might be a bit of a repeat for you. And in the end, of course, we're going into some tools, how you can step out of, let's say, anxiety, out of the fear, how you can make sure that you start your day right, how you can make sure that continuously throughout your day, you get back into center, back to yourself, that you can create from a loving, from a peaceful, heartfelt and truthful space within yourself, that you're not operating out of anxiety, of angst, of fear, but going where your soul actually wants to take you. So who am I? So as you probably gathered by now, my name is Gido Schimanski, and nowadays I help people who are usually in the public eye to perform better, to perform the best they can, maybe even become the best that they are at what they do. And what I like the most, enjoy the process of getting there. So these are people who are often projecting to the outside a masterful life. They have the money, they have the success, they might have the fame. Some of them are probably not known. They seem to be happy, they seem to be very successful, and very often how they feel inside and the image they project to the outside is very different. So I help them close that gap between the image they project and how they really feel inside. So these are professional footballers, working with someone on the German national team. These are international entrepreneurs, CEOs, the occasional pop star. And what I've learned, just make sure, guys, you have muted your microphones. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter in what stage of your life you are. It doesn't matter on what level of success you are at the moment. It doesn't matter if you're just beginning with this journey or if you're in the end of the journey. The game, in order to be fulfilled, is always on the inside. And I've been doing this for 12 years. I used to be a ballet dancer many, many, many moons ago. And when I was 18 years old, I had just started my ballet training, and I started having these pains in my hips. And my doctor back then told me, I was guided towards the best doctor in Munich back then. And he told me, Guido, if you don't stop dancing now, you will end up in a wheelchair within 2 years. And he told me that because the x-rays we took showed arthritis in my left hip. Now I was gutted. I was destroyed because I had just left everything in order to start what my soul wanted to do. I started training in one of the best schools, and I was being told if I pursue my dream, I will end up in a wheelchair. Now, I don't know if it was the arrogance of youth, or if it just being stupid, or if I was being guided, which is what I truly believe, but I never took that quite seriously. And I started looking for other options, for different doctors, for different treatments. I even had radioactive stuff injected into my hips, so we saw the arthritis and to see how strong it was. And then I became a member of one of the biggest ballet companies in Europe. I somehow lost my x-rays, and I somehow lost my pain. And as we checked again, the arthritis I was supposed to have was gone. Now, till today, I don't know what happened. But I do know that I decided at that moment that I will never believe, or that I will never make a life's decision just based on one person's opinion. And I learned that mind over matter really is a reality, and that things can change where everybody tells you this is how it is. Remember, I not only had x-rays, I had this live x-ray, as you call it, or probably don't call it, with radioactive stuff injected. So we saw it was degenerated. Many years later, I already changed into acting, and I was in a little show called Cats. And yet again, I had problems in my knees. But I've learned things before, and I knew that I had to look for different options, different opinions. Now, this time I asked 3 different doctors, and 3 different doctors told me I needed to have a knee operation. And still it felt wrong. They told me, well, you'll be back, performing in 6 weeks. But I knew that wasn't going to be the case. I mean, if you are in show business, or if you ever seen the show Cats, that's probably one of the biggest strains you can put on your body 8 times a week. But I had my experience from 16 years before. I was 34 at the time. And so I started venturing out. I started looking for new solutions. And yet again, 15 years later, my knees are fine. I never had that operation. So I learned that mind over matter and looking for a new option, for changing my perspective, is a true reality. And that what is going on the outside, even if that is my physical body, might not have to do with everything that's going on the inside. And that's what is going on in the inside can decide how my outside world will look. Now, today we find ourselves very often in a space where we feel a victim because everything is changing. I cannot leave my house. I cannot go to work, or I have to sit at home with my husband or my wife 24 hours a day. But yet again, these are circumstances, and if we cannot change the circumstances, we can always change the perspective and how we feel inside, which will usually in turn change the circumstances on the outside. So this is just a little story about where I come from. I've been doing this now for 12 years. I was living in London back then, moved to London in 2005. And when I started with this work, of course, a lot of creative people were, started finding me. I started working with writers, with singers. There was a rock star in there actually that I admired a lot in the 80s. That's how old I am. I'm just under 300 years old. And so I realized how much and how important it is that we continuously focus on that dial that we switch, and how important it is that we take responsibility for how we feel. It's not your teacher. It's not your director. It's not your boss. It's not your wife. It's not the world. It's not Corona. You are responsible. We are responsible for how we feel. And I said this many, many years before, and I say it even more now, nothing is more important than that we feel good and that we take responsibility to stay in that space every day. And you will find out later why that is so important. So all my work used to be based just on the subconscious mind. Well, I come from a very spiritual background, let's put it that way. But my real love is how we are programmed and how we are conditioned to believe certain things about myself. I believe when we enter this world, when we enter this body, we are just divine beings, spiritual beings, a soul having a spiritual experience, a physical experience. Whatever you want to call that, maybe call it energy, universe, God, something is coming in, and we're coming here with completely like a clean slate. And then something happens. We get caught up in the stories in our mind. And in order to understand that, I often say, I need to explain how you're being programmed to understand why you tick the way you tick, and why others tick the way they tick, and how you can change the way you tick. And I often explain this on the example of a computer. So let's say I have an old computer sitting here. It's a MacBook, and it's failing me a little bit today. It's just getting very loud. However, that old MacBook, beautiful, it served me for many, many years. It is the hardware. So you have the computer that has all, the keyboard on it, and all the little things inside, and the screen. And that comes out of the factory, but you can turn it on and off, and there's nothing on there yet. And the computer has an operating system. Now that operating system, because I have a MacBook, decides what programs run on this computer, how updated this whole software is, what goes in, what doesn't go in, and how my computer works. And that operating system now, when it decides which programs go in, if I put very good programs in that are compatible with my MacBook. It says, yes, perfect, we can upgrade, we can update. But for instance, if Microsoft develops probably the best software in the world and exactly what I need right now, exactly what I need to go somewhere to solve all my problems, I put it into my computer, computer says, no. I actually still have a CD-ROM thingy, so it chucks out the CD and says, well, I wouldn't get a CD anymore. It just says, this program can't be read. Computer says no. Why? Because even though it's the best program in the world, it doesn't compute, it doesn't go in, it's not compatible with the existing operating system. So far, so good. So how does this work for us? When that little human being that we were born into this world, and I say, for the sake of this exercise, we are a clean slate. We know now that we are already being programmed during pregnancy, and some people believe even before through ancestry, maybe past lives, but let's not go there today. So let's say this little human being is being born and it's just the hardware. Like that MacBook that comes off the belt and it's, you know, that little baby, it's on and off, so it can sleep, it can be awake, it can eat, it can poop. And if it doesn't get any one of those two, it screams. That's pretty much the basics of that hardware. So that baby doesn't know how to operate in the world. It doesn't even know where to get food and how to eat and that it needs to sleep or not. It doesn't know anything. So it needs an operating system. And that operating system is now beautifully installed by Mother Nature. So the little boy or the little girl just grows up and it observes its surroundings. It observes its parents, its teachers, its preachers, the siblings, and it sees, oh, this is how relationships work. And in goes part of the operating system. Oh, this is how money works. There's always enough money in my home. Or, oh, there's never enough money in my home. Or as it was in my case, there's always just enough money in my home. And in goes a bit of the operating system. It sees that you have to work hard or that you're not allowed to have fun. It sees that you have to obey and behave. It sees that it's good at some things and not good at others. It's being told, shut up, be seen, but don't be heard, and all these little things. And in goes program after program and builds an operating system. And this is important. Now, little disclaimer, you all have an amazing operating system already. Otherwise, I always say you probably would fall off your chair because you forgot to breathe, or you haven't eaten, or you're sitting here, you're watching it on your phone or your computer. So most of the things in your life are really good. That means, that tells me most of your programs are really, really good. What we're doing here is just we clean up parts of the operating system, parts of the program that need to be updated, that aren't valid anymore, that don't serve me anymore. And this is what this time is so perfect for. I'll get to that later. So we walk around and we observe the world and we absorb the world. And we create a filter, a model of the world that now shows me this is how I am, and this is who I am, and this is how I have to operate. They say the average grown-up by the age of 18 will have heard 100 or 200,000 times, don't do this, you can't do that, shut up, who do you think you are, money doesn't grow on trees. Or my personal favorite, as my father used to say, close your eyes and you can see what's yours. That's a lot of negative programming on top of all the good stuff that we have already. And that is just stuff that we take for granted and that we now take in. Filter after filter after filter after filter. And through that, we now see the world. And that is good because nowadays we are bombarded with information. 100 times more in one day that we used to get off, that we used to get in a week or maybe in a year. Today we walk around and there's your phone rings and you get 17 notifications at the same time, then your computer's on, the radio's running, while you get advertisement, while the door rings, or you're sitting in the car. We're constantly bombarded with information that we have to filter out. I was laughing just a little while ago. I was driving across Germany and I was I took, I made a little pee stop on the highway, and I went to the urinals, and there was advertisement on a screen just above the urinal. And I thought, how clever is this? I can't even pee without being bombarded with more messages going in. So our brain has to filter out because it goes in overload. That's the whole reason. It says, okay, we need to filter out what fits in. And now this part is important. It doesn't filter out what's good for us. Remember, the Microsoft software, it's probably the best program. I'm a Mac boy. It's probably not as good as my Mac. However, it might be a good program, but the computer has to filter out because it doesn't fit the operating system. And so it doesn't filter out what's good for me. It filters out what fits my already existing beliefs. I say this again. It doesn't filter out what's good for me. It filters out what fits my already existing beliefs so I can stay where I am. When I first heard that, I thought, ouch. So my subconscious mind runs the show, just like your subconscious mind runs the show. And they say 95% of all our behavior, 95% of all the decisions we make are made by our subconscious mind. And that starts before we even start thinking. You enter a room, you think you make a decision of where you walk and who you like and who you don't like. That decision has already been made through your filters. The trigger's already running. They are continuously running. They say we have 60,000 thoughts a day. We cannot think them consciously. We have to have an automated process. And again, so we filter out, that process starts by what is programmed in the already existing operating system. And so Anais Nin said so beautifully, we don't see the world how the world is. We see the world how we are. And so those beliefs, those patterns, those paradigms that we carry will project out in the world. And I often say in my workshops, I say, so how do you find out what filters, what beliefs, what model of the world do you actually have? And people usually say, well, I can ask my friends, I can tune into the anxieties I have. And I say it's even much simpler than that. Look around. Your life, our life, is an exact replica of our belief system. And that is why, for instance, coaching is so powerful and this work is so powerful, because all we do is, as I said before, we change the inner dial to see what's already there and not continuously go down the same route. Just to make this a little bit clearer, some of you will have heard this before. So let's say little girl comes home from school, it's in first grade, and it goes, oh, mama, I'm amazing. I got an A. I did the best paper in the class. The teacher said I might even be the best pupil, the best student in the whole school. I've done everything you wanted me to do, and I've worked hard, and I'm the best. I'm so happy. I'm the best. I'm amazing. I'm awesome. And she sees how there's worry flushing over her mother's face. And she doesn't know what's going on. She just sees and she reads and takes on the facial cues. And she goes, I need to work hard. I need to create results, but I'm not supposed to be successful. Or she finds out the mother's worry is because the older brother just got home and he unfortunately had the worst test in the whole class. And the mother just thinks in a split second, oh, I'm so happy for her, but what if he actually finds out? Then he will be crushed even more. It's completely natural thought. There's nothing traumatizing about this. It's not like abuse to a child. It's simply just the mother worrying, dealing with different emotions of different children. And yet the little girl goes, when she finds out, the mom might even say, oh, don't flaunt it too much because it might break your brother. She goes, I need to work hard. I need to create results, but I shouldn't be successful because being successful means other people are getting hurt. and suck, in goes a program. And that little girl, and I've seen this, especially in the entertainment industry, over and over again, also with a lot of footballers who go, I want to be successful, but something inside is really tugging and pulling them back, and they can't actually put a word to it until we take it apart. And it's a simple belief, something like this. And so our mind deletes and distorts information along the way, second by second by second by second. We call it delete and distort, as in completely distorting everything that's going on. As a second example, for instance, when they researched the delete and distort process, they found out, well, they had a few beta testers, you know, a few people trying out the work. And one guy written in, I've been married to my wife over 20 years and we're very happy. And I thought I used to be happy, but somehow, actually, I'm not. There's no love, there's no warmth. She's cold as a fish. I don't think she's happy. I'm not being happy. And little spoiler alert, he probably had a I'm not lovable program running. So the researchers were going in and they lived with him for 24 hours. And what they saw was the most loving wife you can imagine. She took care of him, put a blanket over his shoulder, gave him a little kiss, told him I love you, brought him a warm tea. And he didn't notice. He deleted the information because it didn't fit his now existing belief system, I'm not lovable. And so the researchers actually pointed it out. So he couldn't delete the information anymore. And they said, but don't you see? She puts a blanket over your shoulder. She gives you a little kiss. She says, I love you. Here's your hot tea. So his mind starts working. And his reply was, she's just doing that because she wants something. Now you see, the truth, he could realize that she was doing all that, but he had to create a story within him that now made the truth fit his operating system. So one of the biggest things I tell myself every day is, don't believe everything you think. Because I know I'm limited. I know I'm being run by some machine down there, by my subconscious mind, that's telling me things. And a lot of the things are good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you these things. I wouldn't have a phone to do this workshop on if my computer is getting too loud. You see, there's a lot of stuff is running. But the monkey, the operating system, is always talking. Now, what I used to say is it's all about those filters. And we need to open the doors. We need to open those filters now. And the moment, through coaching, through trances, through this work, through therapy, whatever you do, through an insight you might have on a Monday morning in a meditation, you go, that thing I always thought about myself isn't true at all. And suddenly 40 years of programming are falling away. So I thought it was all about the filters. And in the end, the result is always the same. But there's one thing that I just found out a couple of months ago through Dr. Joe Dispenza, actually, that was mind-blowing for me, and why people keep going back into their old patterns. Now, I know that these patterns are there to keep us safe. You see, when, let's say, you have a child grows up and has abusive parents, or maybe an alcoholic father and a mother that's fighting a lot, and there's an older brother and a younger sister, and the middle child is something I just experienced a while ago, finds itself in circumstances where he thinks, I'm here to create harmony for everybody. So his entire childhood, he's been on alert of not rocking the boat, to continuously making sure that everybody stays calm. And if father freaks out, how do I deal with mom? If mom freaks out, how do I take care of my siblings? And so in this case, this little boy just started doing this, balancing out everything. By the age of 18, 20, he wasn't living at home anymore. He didn't need to do this. But that's, of course, now part of the operating system. And the benefit the system gets from continuously creating harmony is I don't get hurt. I don't get hit with a belt. I don't get screamed at with my mom. Or the little girl that I was talking about before. The moment that system decided I shouldn't outshine anyone else, the benefit is if I don't get successful, I'm not hurting anyone. You see, there's always a benefit behind. And so I'm always looking for what's the benefit in your story. Now, I always say the biggest gift I give to my clients is that I don't believe the story they tell me about themselves, because I know the story isn't true. I know the story is a program and that there's usually a vast amount of potential behind it. And I'm lucky enough to see that potential usually. So I can carry that for someone when they often cannot see it. So it's time to change the dial, to let go of those old beliefs and find out what those beliefs are. Now, recently, I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural, and he took this one step further, and it was a mind-blowing insight for me. And that was, he said, if we hit a certain trauma or a certain incident in our life, or we create a continuous pattern in our childhood, or maybe even when we are grown-ups and we have trauma in our lives, like we're losing a spouse, someone gets in an accident, or anything traumatic, and we get stuck in those emotions, something really, let's say, interesting is happening. So any emotion, what we know, creates a certain chemical reaction in the body. I taught this like 12 years ago already, when I found research about how love creates a certain chemical reaction in our body, hate creates a certain chemical in our body, forgiveness creates a very loving energy in our body that you can measure. But hate, fear, unforgiveness, all kinds of crisis, stress creates not so healthy reactions in our body, and that is measurable. And now what they found out is that our traumas and our filters, the situations that we're in, create certain kind of emotions. And the emotions, of course, create our behaviors. So far, I always followed. The two and two that I didn't put together so far was certain emotions create certain chemicals. And the body is getting used to those chemicals. So if we find ourselves continuously in a space of love or happiness, or continuously in, I'm not good enough, I'm always struggling, why doesn't anyone love me? Then that's a certain emotion that we carry over and over again. And this is where it gets interesting. That certain emotion now creates chemicals over and over again that get released into our body. And we get addicted to those chemicals. Now, it doesn't matter if these are good chemicals or bad chemicals, or good reactions, bad reactions. It is just a reaction. But we're getting used to it. And what I find so mind-blowing is, and I think how Dr. Joe said it was, we are getting addicted to the chemicals. So in fact, we are getting, if it's a miserable reaction, we are getting addicted to feeling miserable, because our body needs to feel the same. Now, if I go back to my friend who grew up in an abusive household, very abusive household, is continuously on alert. His body needs that chemical. It's the same as if you're getting used to alcohol, or getting used to sugar, or getting used to cigarettes, nicotine. We're longing internally for that feeling that the chemical reaction is giving us. Now, I want to give you time to let this sink. We're getting addicted to feeling the way we have always felt. Now, of course, there's many, many different facets to this and how we feel in each and every situation. But you might actually be addicted to feeling miserable. And I just went, I always like sharing personal stuff to make it, because I'm on the journey just like everybody else. And the story I used to tell myself most of my life was, I have no friends and nobody likes me. Because that story was created within me when my mom told me when I was about 7 years old. She said, you know, I was always quite happy with the things I did, and I was probably very proud. And she said to me, probably just concerned about my welfare, she said, no wonder you have no friends as arrogant as you are. No wonder you have no friends as arrogant as you are. So that means, first of all, I have no friends. Thank you for confirming that. And I'm arrogant, so I will never have friends. So first of all, I'm not loved, and I continuously have to change my behavior in order to be loved. Now that feeling of I'm not befriendable, it wasn't unlovable, because I had love in my life, but it was like most people just don't like me. That was just a given for me. And the interesting thing is, I lived with this story until I was about 42. Now, also because my body kept creating the chemicals that I was being addicted to of I'm not befriendable, so to speak. Part of it might be unlovable. The mind-blowing experience I had around this was when I was actually playing a show back in my hometown, and this was in 2013, and we were in the press, and it was very popular. And I was walking through the box office, and there was one of the cool kids from school trying to get a ticket. We were completely sold out, and he was one of the guys that everybody wanted to be. And I was 43 at the time. And we had a big hello, and oh my God, it's amazing to see you. And I'm trying to get a ticket for my daughter and me and all this kind of stuff. And then somehow, out of the blue, he says to me, Gido, when you joined our school in 8th grade, do you know that everybody wanted to be like you? Now that didn't fit my story at all. That was so far out of my belief system that I couldn't even distort it anymore, delete it. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, everybody wanted to be like you. And I said, well, I thought you always just didn't like me and thought I was eccentric. He said, well, you were eccentric. I mean, it was the 80s. Come on, we all had collars up and hair standing up. He said, no, you just never seem to care what anyone thinks. And all I did for 42 years was care what people think about me and try to make them happy. And then that moment, 30, 40 years of bad programming just completely fell off my shoulders. And I started thinking, what else am I believing that's not true about myself? Now we need to get out of this chemical reaction that we are addicted to. We need to get out of these patterns and out of these belief systems if we really want to create a new reality. And so if, for instance, I feel unloved, let's stay with this example. I got to ask myself, how do I really want to feel? Okay, I want to feel loved. I want to feel that people want to be my friend, for instance. I was lucky enough to have that one smack bam positive trauma that kicked me out of it. Well, I've worked probably 10 years before that on that topic, so you know, it wasn't that smack bang. But the moment I know how I feel, and I actually notice that I'm stuck in that negative emotion, which is the biggest problem. Most times we're getting stuck in a spiral and we don't even notice. We just hit our head against the wall. I can also ask myself, okay, how do I want to feel? We have to go via our emotions. We have to go via energy and not try to, I say, you know, more energy, less matter. So it's not about running around telling people love me and you got to show me that you love me and why are you not calling me? It's not going to work because it's not going to change how you feel inside. We got to change how we feel inside first. And here is why this time is so important. Now we create a world around us. Doesn't matter if you live on a yacht or if you live on the street. that fits our belief system. And we will be hit continuously by the things that trigger us so we can release them. Because I believe the soul is on this planet so we can grow, so we can have an experience to expand. I often say, coming to this planet, I do believe we incarnate and it's a soul, that we're not just a pile of cells and then we die and then it's all gone. That would make it much easier. I actually believe that there's something, some energy inside me that's in all of us and that's connecting us. And so for me, in my naive understanding, we come here like coming to a playground. And I love roller coasters and I love being thrown up and down and head over and go to the ghost ride and being scared and eat a lot and then maybe throw up, and then it's an amazing day. My mom used to say when I was 6 years old, she said, "Oh, you're green in the face, you threw up and you want to go again, don't you?" I said, "Yes, it's amazing." So for me, this is what life is about. We incarnate into this life so we can have the ups and the downs and the ghost rides, and we get scared, and then we have amazing food, and then some is good and some is scary, but it's all wanted. And then at the end of the night, we go home to the dinner table and we say, "My God, what an awesome day." But when I'm in the free fall, I probably think, what the F am I thinking doing this? So for me, this is what life is all about. From a soul's perspective, it's all about expansion and growth. And so I have a massive chance of expanding and working through those triggers, through those filters, through those programs that are holding me in my little role, that are holding me in those chemical reactions, so to speak. And I often say, if I set an intention and I want to go somewhere, this is why I read out the intention before. If I set an intention and I want to go somewhere, usually two things happen. First of all, a door opens and shows this is the way. And if you have nothing inside you that is holding you back, no negative programming or beliefs, you will probably just walk into the glory light that you want to create. Let it be the career or the relationship or the money, if it's in accordance with the operating system. But we all know in some areas of our lives that works. For me, that's always been health. For me, there's always been enough money, never massive money until I changed. Well, that's what we're changing. But I've never went into debt, for instance, because I never been given the concept of going into debt with my parents. So we have our programming and we are now into expanding, releasing those triggers, those beliefs, the model of the world that we're holding. If we set the intention and the door opens, usually the second thing happens, and that's showing us where we're holding ourselves back in order to go there. So if we decide we want to go up, we level up, we want to upgrade, we want something new in our lives, an opportunity arises, two opportunities arise. First, the opportunity of opening the door and going there, and the second opportunity of looking at, it's after 8 o'clock here, looking at the shit that's holding me back. So pardon my French. And we got to be daring and actually look at that. Because once we do, knowing that it's not real, it's just a program, that's the given, then life is happening for me. Then that rejection, that breakdown, that job I didn't get might be the best thing that happens to me, because it shows me the fear it's triggering. It shows me what else I need to let go of. When I started with this coaching work, you know, of course, I did a lot of the processes on myself, and I used to come home. My parents lived in Germany. I lived in London back then, and I used to come home. And probably some of you probably had parents like this. I don't know. I came home. I hadn't even closed the doors. I still had my coat on. I still had my suitcase in my hand. And my mom would say, "Well, you've gotten thin," or not hello, but "Oh, you've gotten big," or "Your hair's getting thin," or "You look tired. You look old." There was no hello. There was literally just going for the stuff that would hurt me the most. And honestly, I don't think she meant any of it. She just didn't have many filters anymore. She just looked at me and thought, "Oh, you look different than half a year ago, and that's what I'm going to tell you." So, well, thanks, Mom. I know I've grown older. Now, as a 34-year-old actor, you don't want to hear that you're getting old, that your hair's thinning, or that you're getting fat, or whatever. And so I start changing matter. I started changing my mother, telling her how she had to behave to not upset me. And it simply doesn't work. We cannot change the outside. And then I realized, if this stuff is triggering me so much, the fear of getting old, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of being ugly, the fear of not getting a job, whatever, then I have something inside me that I need to change, that I want to change in order to expand in the direction that I want to grow in. Does that make sense? So I welcomed every remark my mom said. Oh, apparently I fear I'm getting old. So I took myself into a little session and I released the fear of getting old. Apparently I fear I'm losing my hair and it's getting gray. So I released my fear of not being attractive. And I did this over and over again through tapping, through trances, through forgiveness, all the techniques I had available. The interesting thing is, my mom started changing her behavior because she didn't need to mirror my beliefs anymore. Also interesting, her behavior towards my brother never changed. He still got triggered with every time you open the door. And that's what I mean, is it's so worth looking at the triggers that are coming up and release them and release them and release them, because they are the breadcrumbs that guide us to where we want to go. And yes, I believe it can actually go joyfully and easy and lovely. Now, coming to the actual point of today, why is this so extraordinary today? Because we find ourselves in a time where on one side, we are being hit by so many triggers that are going deep, losing our existence. I mean, this is not easy. Losing, not being able to pay for our life. Losing our job, not knowing how to pay the rent. All, these are big things. These are the triggers that are magnified in this time. But the amazing thing that is happening also is when that leverage is going to the other side, and so many of our triggers are being suspended because we cannot hang out with our usual friends. We cannot go to the gym as we go 4 or 5 times a week. We do not walk the usual routes because we're not leaving the house. As banal as this sounds, we're not going to the usual restaurant. We're not collecting the usual remarks from the usual people in our usual life. So actually now is a time that it's a field of gold for me, where we can go, what beliefs do I want to create? Because my friends that I usually would tell this tonight to when we have dinner would go, well, really? You think you want to do this? Now you want to sing? Or you want to, what? You now want to be a coach? Or yes, of course, I have Zoom calls with my friends as well. But so many of our usual routines are being suspended. So many of our triggers are being suspended. So we can now fully go out and go, okay, how do I actually want to feel? And step into that feeling, create a feeling. And how we do this, we do in a minute. Create this feeling and not being crushed from the outside straight away. And yes, I know, I'm a single man. I live in a single household. It comes with its own triggers, its own anxieties, because there's a lot of separation, feeling of separation. Others might live with their spouses or their children. And of course, that's a lot of triggers as well. But don't underestimate that even in that, the usual routine is being suspended. Does that make sense so far? Good. I'm looking there, I'm getting a few thumbs up. I'm trying to create a little bit of a live experience here. This is, and it's amazing that we get to connect this way. So how does this feel? Just give me a little, is this bad? Is this good? Does it make you feel better? Does it make you feel worse? Makes a lot of sense. Brilliant. Wonderful. Fantastic. Makes a lot of sense. Simply because, why do you think that is? It's because it gives us the power back. Rather than sitting here like the victim, being a victim of everything, calmer and more clarity. Exactly. Thank you, Hattie. That's exactly the feeling I suddenly had. I thought, there's such an opportunity here. Don't get me wrong. The triggers still hit probably every hour because of everything that is happening. How we deal with that, we go when we come to the tools. Very personal, perfect. Thank you, Agnes. So I'm in bliss taking myself out of these triggers. Do I want to connect with my friends? Yes, I'm an absolute social animal. I'm very tactile. I need to hug. I'm cuddling wherever I can. So that's one of my triggers. Am I at peace with myself? Do I love to cuddle? Do I love to connect? Yes. Do I want to be at peace and in love with my life, even though I don't have that? Yes. So I can now run out and try to change and make that happen, that I get from the outside what I need. I can change the inside, because what I said before and say again, the moment we change the inside, the outside, the experience will always change. So here's a tool for you. I used to do this when I started with this work on myself. Check in with yourself hourly. Set an alarm. Literally set an alarm on your phone and ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Okay, I feel scared. How do I want to feel? Because when you know how you feel, you make it conscious. What you're doing with this hourly check-in call, you're going conscious. Before the chemicals start spiraling, some good, some bad, they're not judging, they're just doing their job. And thank you, yes. But they're not conscious. We don't know what the 95% of the subconscious mind actually doing. So they are spiraling downwards. And the moment we go conscious, we bring it up on the table, is when we can change it. So now I know how I feel. Oh, so how do I actually feel? Address it. Don't run away. Don't look away. Don't just get busy. Go, I'm scared. I feel lonely. I feel unloved. My best friend didn't reply to my text. And the spiral goes. Happened today. So address it. And then I look, okay, what's happened and how do I feel? So all these emotions come up. And that gives me a very good inkling on how I want to feel. Now, the little monster inside starts kicking now. Be aware. It will start going, oh, this is stupid. Why do you want to look there? This is not going to work anyway. Who do you think you are? Doesn't shut up. Be prepared. Again, has nothing to do with the truth. That's just the program that is trying to keep you in your same reactions, in your frame of mind, creating the same chemicals that you've always created. Say hello, thanks for sharing, and move on. So how do I actually want to feel? I want to feel loved. I want to feel respected. I want to feel connected. So what can I do right now in order to gain that feeling? Sometimes it is as simple as looking for evidence where in your life you actually feel like this. So as an example, I had this today. As many of you know, I just told everybody I'm doing this masterclass tonight. And I think this is important for people to hear today. And even if it's just to have a little pick me up, even if it's just to connect and get a lovely energy or to do something different. And one of my closest friends just didn't react at all to my message. And that is absolutely fine. And here I know she's busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. But little 7-year-old was being triggered from one person, from one reaction, from one outside situation. And so I went into, okay, how do you feel? I feel rejected. I feel like yet again, I'm not being seen, blah, blah, blah. And I started laughing because I know that story. I've known that story for a long time and it doesn't show up anymore that often. But apparently there's still residue there and then we can release it. What changed the feeling? Remember, we don't want to change the outside. is, how do I want to feel? I want to feel accepted. I want to feel loved. I want to be befriended. And I looked into the evidence that my life is giving you right now. Where in my life am I actually feeling like this right now? Everyone else. So the ratio between the trigger and all the positive feedback that I was getting was ridiculous, because there was so much love, and there's so much love and warmth and friendship coming my way. And I saw myself drilling into that one emotion. So I started making a list. So I checked in. That was the hourly check-in. How do I feel? Oh, I feel resented, rejected, not taken seriously, blah, blah, blah. How do I want to feel? Where in my life do I see evidence that this is already a reality? And instantly, I switched. The energy is open. Energy started flooding again. I put names down. I realized conversations I had, love that was coming towards me, people that are supporting me. And then I called my best friend. I said, hey, I was a little bit sad you didn't react to this. She said, oh, I thought that was just an information about one of these interviews you were giving. And you always said I don't need to reply. I said, no, that's usually something else, but that is very personal. She said, oh, I'm sorry, I just didn't get that. And I'm being triggered at the moment because nobody's replying to my texts. So we had a lovely conversation in 30 minutes. If I would have picked up the phone, which I don't do anyway, but a lot of people would have just picked up the phone and tried to make her feel bad and change her behavior so they feel better. Do you understand the power in this? So I want to guide you through this again. Set an alarm. If you're not conscious enough yet how you feel anyway, ask the question, how do I feel right now? If you feel brilliant, lovely. Go into why you feel so brilliant. If you don't feel brilliant, how do I want to feel? And where in my life do I have evidence of that this is the reality already? That will start changing an energy. You will open up a vortex. You will open up those doors, and suddenly you realize, oh my God, there's so much happening in my life. And we know that where focus goes, energy flows. If I would have drilled into that one little story, everything would have spiraled into that one little story. But energy goes where your energy follows where your focus goes. And so if we swap, we go back to looking for the evidence, we start relaxing, we start opening up. Now, taking this one step deeper is, actually, let's do this with a little exercise. These things I'm giving you are a little bit out there for your system. I think you get that by now, because your system is being programmed to act a certain way, to feel a certain way. So put your pens down, not your pants, your writing gear, I mean. It's not that kind of call. Put your pencils down. That's on the next Zoom. Different password. So, and just do this for me. How does this feel? This feels comfortable, right? This is how we lock in our fingers, right? Now do this for me and just swap one back and cross the thumb to the other side. How does this feel holding your hands like this? Just give me a little feedback. Go back to how you normally do, and then swap into the opposite. If you release your hands, you can actually type in. Feels unusual, exactly. Strange, little awkward first, yes, not as comfortable, exactly, it's not as comfortable. So what do? We will always go, if people say, close your hands, we will always go to this position. No different, that's good. Am I wrong? We know you're wrong, Alex, but that's a different story. No, Alex is a good friend of mine, so this is what we do. This is what we do with our mindset every day. We go to what we know. And the moment I'm telling you to do something different, you go, this feels icky. This feels unusual. This feels strange. So you will go back to this eventually. Now, do this for me. 10, 20 times while I check the watch. Good. Maybe another 6 or 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now go back to the unusual one, if you remember which one that was. Does that feel slightly better? Slightly more comfortable? Such a simple trick. It fits better. That's all it is. What we're doing is we're continuously stuck in our old structures. And the moment we just practice them and we practice them and we practice them and we practice them, it fits better. It becomes not unusual. It becomes comfortable. It becomes normal. Now, if Alex says this is no different, that's actually brilliant, because you're completely neutral, and from a neutral place, you can create. And that is why I actually believe when Alex says this is no different, that he's actually telling the truth, because he's someone who creates from a neutral place. So we want to always come to a neutral place and not try to change a situation out of the old frame of mind, out of the old mindset, out of the old anxiety, fear, anger. So what the mistake a lot of people do is, how do I feel? Shit. I feel like I want to, I don't know, slap him or fight or whatever. They now think they need to be so spiritual, they need to just visualize and feel how they're being loved and how they're being rich and how the money's flooding in and how life is better. And that is unfortunately the approach that most people do. And unfortunately, it's very hard work, because we're coming from a set mindset and trying to force out of the set mindset something new, but we're looking from a standing point into how we want it, but we're not changed the feelings. And changing the feelings coming from that vantage point on our own is actually quite hard. This is why coaching is so powerful. And when we do this in groups or in one-on-one sessions, because we change via the inside, suddenly it makes sense, or it doesn't make sense holding on to this. Doing this ourselves is hard. So in order to not create from this matter, this physical situation, create a new physical situation, we need to get in a space of being neutral. No difference. And that is a space of meditation, for instance. That is a space where we clear our mind, where we empty out. I wholeheartedly believe your soul knows exactly what needs to flow in. Usually it just can't let anything flood in because we're too full. And what we're doing is we're completely full. We're already running over with blah, blah, blah. And then we're trying to put something else in because I need to have a different life. And that doesn't work. We need to empty out. Now that happens, for instance, in a good conversation, on a level 3 conversation, where we actually get to empty out and somebody doesn't tell me, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, you shouldn't think that. Where somebody allows you to just empty out. A wonderful tool is also to journal, to start your day. And I used to love the Artist's Way. I still love it. I just haven't looked at it for many, many years. And Julia Cameron has one exercise in there she calls the morning pages. And it's just emptying out to the page, but not thinking. And I was always so intrigued by how she does it. She says, take 3 pages, A4, and start writing. The pen never leaves the paper. And you write everything down that you think. And what happened, I remember this, for the first weeks I did this, it was, well, it's raining and I'm tired and I really don't want to do this. And I still don't want to do this. And the coffee tastes good, but now it's getting cold and I still don't want to do this. Oh, by the way, I still don't want to do this. And the pen, but now I'm thinking of my mom, and why didn't she actually call me the other day? And suddenly you go into a space. What it allows you is to finally finish a sentence rather than spiraling downwards. And what it allows you is to empty out. My friend Marsha Martin, she's, you know, we used to call it the godmother of personal development. She used to say there's only two things: there's space and things in space. And if we want to create something new in our life, we need to create the space for it first. So we need to empty out. And when we go into a meditation, or when we journal, or when we have these aha effects, I know some of you work with me personally, these aha effects where you suddenly just go, huh, that's just different. It's when we created the space for something new to fall in. Coming back to these times, a lot of our usual routines and triggers are being suspended. There is space to create something new right now. What do you want to create? And I know, and I'm doing this myself sometimes, so many of us are talking about when we're back to normal. And what they're doing is, a huge problem these days is that people, even from the first lockdown, you know, it's normal to have half a bottle of wine or a bottle of wine every day. But what people are doing is they're sedating themselves so the waiting becomes shorter until it's back to normal. What if it doesn't go back to normal? What if we have the chance to create something completely different? What if we have the chance to create something and create us in a way that we really want to be? But that doesn't work if we go back into old triggers and just go, well, I'm just gonna, I don't know, drink and binge Netflix and have sex or whatever, just in order to not take the time to look at the suspense, to look at this empty space that I'm probably feeling. And saying this, I think this is actually one of the biggest pains, feeling the empty space of not having the triggers around us. It's a blessing. The only thing it is also, it's uncomfortable because we don't know it. We know getting up and being fired straight away. As in, you know, everything is going. We know that the children and the husband and the wife are there, and we know how the boss has to react. And suddenly, we're responsible for our own day. We're responsible for how we feel. We're responsible for our routine. And we're not used to that. It's unusual. And all we need to do is create a routine and create a habit of creating from this space of neutrality. Now, I know the other side of the medal is a lot of the other triggers hit, like money, jobs, what's going on in the world. And don't underestimate, we're all sentient beings. We feel, we're all connected. We do feel a collective angst. That's what we pick up. So I want to make sure that it's okay to feel shit. So, you know, I think we're over that word now. So it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel. I had a lot of people call me crying this week, saying I'm actually lying on the floor, or I'm being triggered by this topic, or I can't deal with this anymore. That's okay. Accept that. First, don't run away, don't look away. Sit with it, and then go, okay, how do I want to feel? What if some of the triggers that usually get me are actually missing, so I can create something new? And from that spot, we can now take responsibility for how we want to feel. And that brings me to the last big thing, and this is create a routine to set up your day. I've always had a morning routine. Some call it the magical mornings, some call it the 5 a.m. club, some, you know, I know how important it is for me to have a morning routine running. I used to think I'm just implementing a morning routine so I have done my stuff. I've meditated and I did a bit of exercise and I did my reading. But especially nowadays where we have no routine because everything is suspended, we need to create routines for us that make us comfortable where we want to be. Now, I took on what Robin Sharma writes in his book, The 5 a.m. Club. I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. anymore. Sometimes I'm getting up at 3:30 and sometimes at 9. It seems like I don't know, I usually wake up at 3:30. I'm just awake for 2 hours, but that's a different story. I feel like, okay, what's going on? So But what I've taken on from his routines is when I get up, it's usually 7:30. I get into my routine that I make myself do. If I don't do this and I go back to how I want to, my system wants to, I guarantee you I will feel bad within 2 hours. Now, what my system wants to do is wants to just lie in bed because I've got another 2 hours. Why should I get up? Let's have a coffee in bed. Yeah, why not turn my phone on and just check on the messages? What's going on in the news? I literally don't have a TV anymore, so I haven't had a TV in 10 years. But of course, I check the news throughout the day at some point. If I do that first thing in the morning and then check the messages that came in through the night and maybe my emails and maybe some of the social media, I'm doomed for the rest of the day. I can feel a shift of probably 40% in my system. So what I do is I get up, and the first routine I do in the morning is something physical. Now, I do something called the 5 Tibetans. I know some of the old gang will know this. Some of my old friends still make fun of this, still make fun of me for this. It's like a certain kind of yoga flow that's very beneficial for your health. And what we need to do is you can go running, you can do yoga, you can do high ET, any activity in the morning is good for 2 reasons. We want to get into sweating first thing in the morning. Why? Because our cortisol levels, the fear hormone, is the highest in the morning when we wake up. And I printed this off so I can read this out to you. So what is happening, we're waking up. Actually, this is someone writing about Robin Sharma's book. Cortisol, the fear hormone, is highest first thing in the morning. That's why the first pocket of the day is all about intense exercise. Like, you want to get into sweating. When you sweat, you release brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is going to repair brain cells that are damaged by stress and promote faster processing, which allows you to think better during the day. And your cortisol level, your fear hormone, is going down. Now imagine you wake up, your cortisol level is high anyway. This is normal physical reaction. And the first thing you do is have a cup of coffee, turn on your phone, check your messages, and go and see what's going on in the world. Do you think that's going to benefit your day? That's going to bring your stress levels down, or actually put on top of what's going on? So if I actually get up and I know, even if I just do 50 minutes, it's not more than that, it's maximum 20. I know I actively bring my cortisol fear hormones down and prepare my day for thinking better during the day. Do I want to do it? Hell no. Do I do it? Yes, because I want to feel better throughout my day. And those 20 minutes are absolutely worth it. Now, if you have time, what I do is I actually do 3 things. I then add meditation. I used to do this before, but now that I know that I can bring my cortisol levels down beforehand, meditation is even easier. And this meditation I used to use it to manifest and visualize, and I used recorded things, and now I just go into a space of neutrality, of no different. I love that you said that, Alex. I aim for a space of no difference. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no here, there's just space. So my soul can now fill in where I need to go. Then things happen, like on Monday morning when it goes, there's actually a real opportunity in this time and you need to do a masterclass. I knew I was going to fight this with every fiber of my being, so I did the only thing I could. I told 3 or 4 of my close friends just that I did it, because I knew they wouldn't let me off the hook and start promoting. And so I thought, damn, so now I really have to do it. Now I want to do it and I love doing this. But my monkey, of course, is being triggered over and over again as well. So in that meditation, when I enter a space of nothingness, of neutrality, I'm doing 20 minutes. And do I get there every day? No. Sometimes not for weeks. But I aim for a space of neutrality because I know my brain can breathe again. And I'm not being caught in my triggers. And now I have brought my fear hormones down. I enter the space of neutrality through meditation. Now I can fill my cup. I like to do some reading. You can listen to interviews, a podcast, educate yourself, learn. So this is a classic Robin Sharma routine. It's not something I made up. Picked this up from him, and I realized how beneficial that is for me. So, all the glory to him, of course. But I want to pass this on. Now I'm in a completely different space in order to deal with the triggers and non-triggers that are happening. Because not having my usual triggers might be a big trigger. And now I'm in an easier space of mind where I can go into my hourly routine of checking how do I feel and how do I want to feel? How do I want to create? Because I come back to the morning space of neutrality. Very different day. If I decide now, don't need to look at that, don't need to get up today, just going to open my phone and another voice recording, 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 2 minutes, gotta listen to this, and then suddenly it's already, the stress is up here and I haven't listened to the voice messages until in the late evening, for instance. Very different day. So in order to set up the morning right, just to end this now, we want to set up the sleep right. And there's a few things that I love doing during my day, and these are so simple. And I was so touched because a friend of mine told me recently, she talked to someone who's been to one of my workshops like 2 years ago, I think it was, who told her, I'm still doing the same routines that Gido's given us. And I always say, you probably won't do these because they're too simple. I know how powerful they are, and that's why I do them. But I also know because they're so simple, a lot of people don't do them. And one of them is, of course, gratitude lists. If I ask people, what are you grateful for today? This might be an athlete. Let's say an athlete sitting in front of me, and he goes, I don't know, I have nothing to be grateful for. Got a killer career, still being paid, can afford coaching. iPhone is on the table next to his car keys. But we are so often stuck in what we cannot have right now or what is triggering us. So we need to practice getting back into what am I grateful for today? I'm grateful that I don't know, I still have hair on my head. I'm grateful that I have a phone. I'm grateful that I can share this with you guys today. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. We take things for granted that many people on this planet just don't have. I'm grateful that I have a toilet I can flush. Many people don't have that. Now, what does gratitude do? Again, it brings us back to a space of feeling better from which we create differently. And I like doing that before I go to bed, but I like doing gratitude in the morning. In the evening, I actually go, what went well today? It's very similar, but I go, okay, what did I do today? Because the monkey on our shoulder very often just wants to tell us, no, you did nothing today. And then we go stressed into bed and we probably wake up even more stressed. And I guarantee you, you've done a lot of good things, even if you've taken care of yourself by sleeping all day, because it's something you probably won't allow yourself. So if you go to bed and you think about 3 to 5 good things that have happened today, and you choose that over falling asleep with Netflix on, I know it's not easy. It's the monkey. It's unusual. It is literally this, turning off Netflix and going, okay, what am I grateful for? What happened today? 3 good things, because I know I'm going to sleep in a better frequency. I did these exercises actually with one of my footballers recently, and we were talking about sleeping, not being able to sleep. Easy to do, easy not to do, exactly. And then it's the question of what's the usual thing to do and what's my usual routine, and that's what we choose. And we just switched over a few rituals, and of course we looked at the emotional triggers. That's always important. So why is my anxiety going up? But we released 1 or 2 triggers. We took away a few of the routines and exchanged them for better routines where we would go to bed feeling better. And I got a message later on, because they sleep with rings on that actually measure their sleep habits. And I got a message saying, this has sleeping, deep sleep was up to 70% or something. He says, I haven't had that in years. That's very unusual for me. So by very small changes and changing how we feel and changing how we think, not always easy if we do that alone, but I think with the exercises today, you can. We have some real changes in our system. So that's the stuff I needed to get out today. That's the stuff I wanted to share. I hope it's been helpful. I hope you entered a slightly different space. You maybe shifted your perspective. Maybe it's not all just gloom and doom. Maybe we are creating something. We're in the process of releasing what's not working anymore, maybe on a bigger scale, and creating something that we always felt we wanted. It's an option. I don't know that, but it's certainly the thought that feels best to me and that I want to hold on. And so I would love it if you share some feedback with me. If you know, I would actually love it if you take a snapshot and you post something on Insta so I can repost it, because that's amazing. So people know this is happening. I'm going to do this whole class again on Wednesday in German. And I probably, do you feel this do you have some friends that would benefit from this? Then I would, maybe I'd do this between Christmas and New Year's again, and we just go down deep into this again. And as I promised, in the new year, just checking the time, in the new year, I want to create a coaching group where we go in and we do 6 weeks of weekly workshops, live webinars. We will be working with daily routine changes, daily thoughts. Then we have an hour-long coaching session in the group every week. There will be a trance. I used to work a lot with trance coaching in order to change your system from the inside. Well, you're so welcome. So we really want to go into the synapses of our brain and go completely, change, especially when we're in a deep trance state. We're in that neutral state, and from there we can create while we are, so to speak, asleep or in trance. So 6 weeks of completely reprogramming and making sure we stay level, because this winter is going to check out a lot of triggers. This winter is going to have a lot of walls we're running against, and it's going to have a lot of times where we have no triggers at all, which is just as scary. So let's do this together. This is going to be extensive, as in intensive. We're going in. I don't know if this group is going to be 5 people or 20 people or 50 people. If you are interested, send me an email or a message somewhere. You'll find me, and we set this up, because, as I said before, I'm not a technical wizard, and I couldn't deal with creating another platform, and especially not a sales platform. But that's my monkey. So it's there for you to join, and we're going to do this in German and English as well. And I think we all need something like this beginning of the year. So how do you feel? So I can actually, that's a picture I like to see. This is amazing. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this today, for putting this out to all your friends, to your followers. I didn't expect 40 people. That's just beautiful. Let's do this again on Wednesday in German. And please share, post, tag me so I can share this a little bit as well, because it's always hard to explain what I do. Have a good night. Oh, Mika, so good to see you. And have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful Christmas time if I don't see you on Wednesday. If you want to know more, reach out. I'm very, very easy to talk to, I think. Isn't that